Hey, it's Jack, the one and only, sharing the moments I lived through and the story I've learned from others. There are things in life that don't break loudly. They don't crash, they don't fail dramatically, they don't send warnings, they just keep running. And because they keep running, we assume everything is fine. This episode is about one of those things, something that worked for me for a long time, something I rely on, something that helped me survive earlier phase of my life. But over time, it quietly became expensive. I didn't notice it at first. I didn't feel pain. I didn't see damage. I just feel tired. A different kind of tired. And it took me a long time to realize why. For most of my life, I pride myself on being functional, not outstanding, not flashy, just functional. I show up, I deliver, I stay calm, I handle things, I kept moving. Even when I didn't feel great inside, I could still perform. That ability became my identity. I told myself, as long as I can still function, I'm okay. And for a long time, that was true. Functioning was enough. I never questioned this part of myself because it was useful. It helped me get through stress. It helped me carry responsibility. It helped me avoid burdening others. It helped me stay reliable. People trusted me because I didn't fall apart easily. I trusted myself because I could push through. So why would I question it? When something helps you survive, you don't label it as a problem. You call it strength. The cost didn't show up immediately. It showed up quietly, in small ways. Feeling heavy for no clear reason. Feeling flat even when things were going well. Needing more effort to recover after stressful days. Feeling disconnected from my own emotions. Being present physically but absent internally. At first, I blamed circumstances. Work is busy. Life is full. Everyone feels tired. So I ignored it. I told myself this is normal. Looking back now, I realized I was very good at ignoring sickness, not intentionally, just habitually. If something felt uncomfortable, I distracted myself. If emotions surfaced, I stayed busy. If I felt overwhelmed, I tightened my grip and moved faster. I did not process things, I parked them. I didn't feel things fully, I postponed them. And I became very efficient at doing that. At some point, a thought crossed my mind. Not during work, not during a crisis, just a quiet thought one evening. This feels like technical debt, not the dramatic kind, not the kind that breaks production, the kind that accumulates quietly because it's inconvenient to clean up, the kind you postpone because everything still works, the kind that eventually makes everything heavier than it needs to be. That comparison stayed with me. My hidden technical debt didn't look like sadness. It looks like always being the one who absorbed the stress, always being the one who stay composed, always being the one who say it's okay, always being the one who move on quickly, always being the one who does not talk about. It looked responsibly, it looked mature, it looked strong, but underneath that, things were sticking out. Unspoken feeling, unprocessed moment, unacknowledged pressure, unshared fears, all neatly stored, all untouched. I thought this was normal because it was familiar. I grew up learning to manage myself quietly, to not make things harder for others, to handle things internally. So this pattern didn't feel wrong, it feel expected. And when the pattern feel expected, you don't question it, you live inside it. There wasn't a breakdown. There wasn't a dramatic moment. There was just one day where everything felt heavier than usual. Not unbearable, just heavier. Simple decision feel tiring. Normal conversation feel draining. Rest didn't feel restful. I remember thinking, why does everything require so much effort now? That question scared me because I didn't have an answer. Here's the tricky part. I was still functioning. I was still doing my job, still meeting expectation, still showing up. From the outside, nothing was wrong. But internally, everything costs more. More energy, more effort, more recovery time. That's when I realized something had been accumulating. I didn't call it burnout. It didn't feel like burnout. I wasn't exhausted to the point of collapse. I wasn't disengaged. I wasn't numb. I was just carrying too much quietly. And because there was no clear label, I didn't know that what to do with it. So I did what always I did. I keep going. For the first time in long while, I stopped asking, what next? And started asking, what have I been carrying? That shifted, that shift feel uncomfortable because looking back mean opening drawer I had neatly closed for years. But I also felt something else, relief. When I finally slowed down enough to look, the pattern was obvious. I had been using the same copy mechanism for every phase of my life. It worked when I was younger. It worked when my pressure was manageable. It works when steps were lower. But as responsibility grew, the cost grew too. Not because the mechanism was wrong, but because it was outdated. This wasn't about blaming myself. I wasn't angry that version of me. That version helped me survive. That version protected me. That version got me here. But I could finally admit something. What once helped me was not quietly hurting me. And that realization matters. I did not rush to change anything. I did not make big declaration. I didn't try to fix myself. I just noticed. I noticed when I suppressed emotions. I noticed when I avoided conversations. I noticed when I default to myself, say, I'm fine. That awareness alone felt like the beginning of something. Awareness didn't arrive like clarity. It arrived like wait. Once I saw the pattern, I could not unsee it. Moments from the past started lining up. Conversation I brush off. Emotions I postpone. Time I said, it's okay when it wasn't. Situation where I choose composure over honesty. None of them feel dramatic on their own. Together, they feel heavy, not crushing, just constant. There were there was a part of me that didn't want to go deeper because going deeper means feeling things I had successfully avoided for years. Not extreme pain, just quiet discomfort. The kind of discomfort that does not scream but lingers. I was afraid that if I opened those drawers, everything will spill out. So for a while, I stood there, aware but hesitant. This wasn't the tiredness that sleep fixed. It was the tiredness that comes from holding yourself together for too long, from constantly managing, from always being composed, from absorbing more than you release. I wasn't exhausted. I was compressed. That word fits better. I did not suddenly open up everything. It started small, admitting to myself that some days were heavier than others, letting a feeling sit for a bit longer before pushing it away, not immediately distracting myself when something felt uncomfortable, just staying. Those moments feel awkward, unproductive, strange, but also honest. I noticed how often I said, I'm okay, not lying, just defaulting. I'm okay become my shortcut, my exit, my shield. Saying it keep things moving. Saying it avoid explanation. Saying it protected me from having to feel more. And once I noticed it, I realized how automatic it had become. Strength is useful until it becomes constant. I had built my identity around being steady, reliable, unshaken, but holding that posture for years had a cost. Not visible, not measurable, just cumulative. And for the first time, I allowed myself to admit that strength without release eventually turns into a weight. Nothing was falling apart. That was made it confusing. No emergency, no breakdown, no obvious reason to stop, which made me easy to ignore. But I had reached a point where continuing exactly the same way no longer feels sustainable. And that's matter. This time, I didn't run. I didn't bury it under busyness. I didn't distract myself immediately. I didn't tell myself to just push through. I sat with it, not heroically, not gracefully, just honestly. And that truth alone felt different from before. I didn't try to optimize my emotion. I didn't try to fix myself. I didn't label everything. I didn't rush to turn this into a project. I just acknowledged that something had been accumulating, and acknowledging it was already a release. I started seeing my past self with more kindness. That version of me wasn't weak. He was surviving. He did what he knew how to do. He kept things moving. He carried weight quietly, and that deserved respect. But I also knew that version could not carry me forward forever. Technical debt isn't evil. It's often a sign that something works when it needed to. But ignoring it forever comes with consequences. The same was true here. My copy patterns weren't no, they were just overdue for attention. I didn't announce change. I didn't suddenly become expressive or emotional. The shift was subtle. I paused more. I checked in with myself more honestly. I allowed discomfort without rushing to eliminate it. I noticed when I was carrying too much alone. Tiny changes, but meaningful. This episode matters to me because it's about something invisible, not achievement, not failures, not dramatic moments, just the quiet accumulation of unprocessed pain. Naming it didn't solve everything, but it gave me language. And language gives you space. This wasn't a story about facing myself. It was about finally seeing what had been piling up quietly while I was busy functioning. Some things don't break loudly, they just get heavier. And sometimes the most important step is not changing anything yet. It's simply noticing. Next episode, I want to return to identity again, to a moment where the version of me relied on for years no longer fit who I was becoming. I will see you in episode 5. Bye.